Hey guys, it's Jack here, and today we're going to be talking about Koby and why I think that Koby is the man best positioned and most likely to stop our main protagonist, Luffy. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, everything's going to become full circle, and the very man that saved Koby from a life of servitude is going to be the man that Koby has to one day eventually take down. Now, to get into why I think that and my thoughts on it and why I hold Koby in such a high regard in being able to accomplish this, we're going to have to learn a little bit more about Koby. We're going to have to understand who he is as a person, which is the main crucial part of this video, and we're going to have to go over his past and his powers, just so we can decipher just why Koby is the man fit for the job of taking down Luffy. Now, I'm sure a lot of you are already turning off. Koby isn't going to take down Luffy. You're dreaming, Jack. And I'll say to everyone with that opinion that before Luffy gets the One Piece, quite likely that Koby wouldn't be at that necessary strength to take Luffy down. But what about the story after he becomes King of the Pirates? What will happen then? And what will happen over the war over the One Piece? Will we get another Koby and Luffy encounter? Well, let's get into the video and just see where Koby and Luffy's relationship will head. Now, what do we know about Koby? So, we know that when Koby was 14 years old, he mistakenly got on the wrong boat. Don't know how he did that. But he got on a pirate ship. And it was a pirate ship led by Alvida. Now, he spent 2 years of his life in servitude to Alvida because he was living under her beck and thumb, chained down by fear of disobeying or trying to escape would result in him dying. Now, in his debut, when we first see him in episode 1 of the anime, it's chapter 2 of the manga, isn't it? Either way, episode 1 of the anime, when we first meet him, he's actually 16. I know that might shock a lot of you. Like, 16, Jack? Jesus, he looks about 12. You're right. He has the best glow-up, I reckon, in all of anime. Debate that down in the comments. He's definitely a up there contender. But Luffy encounters him when he's 16 and when he had spent the two previous years on Alvida's ship. And it's thanks to Luffy that helps Koby to be able to, in a blunt way, grow a spine, but in a more, analytic sense of it, be the one necessary to inspire the confidence and the bravery to be able to not only stand up for what you believe in, but also not to fear dying for what a cause you truly hold a lot of belief in. Now, what I mean by that is that Koby sees Luffy expressing his dreams, wild dreams that are even more ambitious than what Koby holds deep in his heart. And the way that Luffy's able to say this so determinedly and with the knowledge of that he's happy to die trying to accomplish this. And it's not even necessarily like, as long as I succeed, I don't care what happens to me. It's not that at all. Luffy is saying that as long as I try to get there, and if I die trying to pursue that dream, I can die with a, get this, smile on my face, because I know that I've done the very best in my ability to achieve what I set out to achieve. And that's what Koby needs to hear. He's drawn to Luffy like a moth to a flame. And he builds up the courage, and he criticizes Alvida. He calls her a stupid, ugly old hag, or whatever it is that he calls her. Says that when I become a Marine, the first thing I'm going to do is capture your ugly ass. Something along those lines. Maybe not as much profanity, but that's the general gist of what he was saying to Alvida. And, Alvida reacts in kind, tries to bring down a massive iron club on Koby. But Koby, as this is happening and as he thinks he's about to die, he's taken on that resolve that Luffy shared with him, essentially. And he doesn't regret that this might be him dying. Now, it's not the whole dying with a smile on your face like the Clan of D, but in a lot of ways it's a similar aspect of it, because at that moment he was content and resolved to die. And of course we know Luffy steps in and saves him. But that's, Koby might be 16 at this time, but this is when he first starts living. When he can get out of all of the, what's the best word for it? All of the self-doubt and self-worth issues that he was currently facing with not being able to stand up for himself. And even though this happened when he was 14, you could imagine that his life before that, he was living the very kind of same beliefs as he was on Alvida's ship. Not very secure in himself, not very confident, easily having his goals diminished by thinking that he wouldn't be able to do it. But it's meeting Luffy that awakens him and that really brings him alive. And of course, he doesn't want to leave this, beacon of hope that he's just seen. So he joins Luffy as they go to Shellstown. They go to Shellstown, obviously, to recruit Zoro. Now, the only bit of Koby I really want to mention in this arc is at the end. Because what happens is that the Marines encounter Luffy and Zoro and be like, guys, you saved our city, so we're not going to capture you, but we can't have pirates here, so piss off. And Luffy and Zoro understand, and they go to leave. But Koby is still there. And he's very hesitant. He doesn't know what he should do in this situation. And Luffy makes that decision for him, because he tells the Marine that little pipsqueak isn't with us. He wouldn't be a pirate. Do you think we would have him on our crew? And he insults Koby. And we see the drastic change in Koby from just like a day or two's time with Luffy. He gets enraged enough to go and attack Luffy. He tackles him to the ground and he starts punching him and everything like that. And the Koby that we met 2 days ago, or, last episode, would not have had the confidence and the resolve to do that to anyone. Regardless if there was someone as, strong as Alvida in quotation marks, or someone as, weak as just a common day One Piece civilian. He just didn't have the, and I'm saying this word a lot, the resolve necessary to be able to stand up for himself. But with that brief connection with Luffy, he does. And this is what Luffy wants. Because, Koby's wailing down on him and everything, and Luffy's like, alright, enough's enough, and then he starts beating down on Koby, and then the Marines are like, enough, it's obvious that you guys aren't allies, just get out of our town. And Luffy leaves. And Koby is on the ground, he's huffing and puffing, and he's realizing what Luffy just did for him. Because of that, the Marines aren't going to be suspicious of him, because it's clear that they aren't allies. So Koby is thinking to himself, and he's feeling bad because Luffy has then helped him out again. And, it's never nice to have to feel indebted to someone. So Koby's feeling a little bit, disgruntled by it all. But he quickly picks himself up, and he realizes the opportunity that Luffy has given him here. And he's not going to let that opportunity go to waste. So as the Straw Hats are leaving, or, the 2 Straw Hats are leaving, Koby gets on his feet, he salutes the Marines, and he asks for permission to join them. And the Marine in question, sees Koby's spirit and allows him to join. It is important to note that Marine, they didn't get one pass in there. It wasn't very subtle what Luffy was doing, but the Marine could see Luffy's good heart, good intentions, and didn't want that to get in the way of a promising new recruit. So, Koby joins the Marines. And that is the first major arc of Koby's story. He's finally joined the organization that he's always wanted to join. And it was thanks to a pirate. Not just any pirate, but a pirate that will one day go on to be a Yonko, and one day go on to be king of the pirates. Assuming that Koby doesn't stop him. But we'll get into that later. So he joins the Marines, and he joins the Marines with a face that we weren't really excited to see, but a character that, has grown on a lot of us, Helmeppo. The little shit that was the son of Axan Morgan that was infuriating. There, that one. And they have a little training arc together. Because Koby wants to get stronger no matter what, so he's training, and Helmeppo doesn't want to be there. He doesn't want to be a regular Marine. He's the son of Captain Axan Morgan. But it's seeing Koby's resolve to, continuously train, continuously get better, that changes Helmeppo. Now, Helmeppo will be a future video one day. I'm not going to say next week, but one day in the future, I'll happily do a video on Helmeppo. So I won't touch on him too much, but it's important to note that Koby, he's not just developing in strength, he's developing in character and spirit, because he's doing the exact same thing that Luffy just did to him. He's helping someone in his vicinity change their beliefs, come out of their shell, become a better person. That is what Luffy does. He, Hawkeye says it the best in Marineford, that Luffy becomes, he doesn't become allies, but everyone is drawn to Luffy because of his conqueror's Haki, because of his spirit, because of who he is. And Koby is now doing that same thing. And we see that later on in the series, where there's a bunch of rear admirals and people of sword that have a lot of faith in Koby. And you could imagine that he's following that same path as Luffy, as being, he's now the flame and the moths are coming to him, essentially. So he forms a friendship with Helmeppo, and he gains the respect of the great Navy hero Garp the Fist, Monkey D. Garp, the grandfather of our MC, the strongest Marine in the series. And Koby, oh god, sorry about that. Koby is in awe of Garp. He is what everything he inspires to be. So he does his best to, gain his respect. And Garp's not really having much of it, but he sees Koby's resolve. And Koby keeps proving himself and proving himself and proving himself. And him and Helmeppo keep trying to fight Garp over and over and over again to try to earn recognition. And it all pays off. He and Helmeppo gain tutelage under Garp. Now, that's crazy, crazy stuff. He's being trained by literally the strongest Marine in the series. He's narratively being shoehorned to take over for Garp. We know how these things work in stories. So, he trains out under Garp, and in just, I forget the actual time frame, but it's from when he leaves Luffy to when Luffy has the encounter with Rob Lucci. Everything happens in Annie's lobby, and they go back to Water 7. It's a few months. It's under 6 months, it's a few months, it's somewhere around that ballpark. The way time goes in that section of the story is a little bit hard to follow. But you get my gist, it's only a few months. And this is where Koby and Luffy have their next encounter. Because he accompanies Garp to Water 7, and he wants to show off to Luffy everything he's learned. So he has a quick fight with Luffy. We see that he learns Soru, or Shave in English. Basically, the flash step of One Piece. Very, very impressive for a total novice, a literal weaker than most One Piece civilians to learn something like that in a couple of months. Of course, he's no match for Luffy at this time, and Luffy's able to, handle him quite easily. But Luffy sees Koby's progress, and more than just physical progress, he sees the new spirit alive in Koby. Because Koby, he's shaking and he's scared to do it, but he pushes past his fear, and he reveals something that is very personal, something that would get you ridiculed at in this world. He says to Luffy, one day I'm not going to just become a great Navy officer, I'm going to become a Navy Admiral. Now, of course it's Luffy. Koby's thinking, he's going to laugh at me, he doesn't think I'll be able to be that. But we know what our boy does. He supports Koby's dream. He says that one day you and I will have a battle once you're an admiral and I'm the king of the pirates. So Luffy's recognizing, he's doing the same thing that his very own grandfather is doing. And he's already seen it, but he's just seeing firsthand in a second light that just what type of man Koby is becoming. So they part ways there, and they meet again very soon after this as well, because they meet in Marineford. Now, in Marineford is probably the best bit of character development from Koby up until the most recent chapters. Even more impactful than I reckon than the first episode. Because what happens is that Koby and Helmeppo are a part of Marineford. They're seeing all these ultimate powerhouses, all these strong vice admirals, all these strong pirates, and they're seeing what a true battle, a true war looks like. All the death and all the killing and all of this. And Koby's having kind of a philosophical meltdown because he doesn't know what is right. Is all this death really, really worth it? So he's having an existential crisis, and it's going on. He sees one of his heroes, essentially, an admiral of the Marines, kill another Navy officer simply for deserting. Now, this act in and of itself, Akainu doing this, unfortunately isn't really something that can be too deeply criticized for Akainu's character. He's a true, scumbag. He's a very interesting scumbag with his own philosophy that I'll do a video on in the future. But deserters in our own world, not in this day and age, but back in the day, would have been killed. So Koby, and that, it's not Koby just seeing an admiral just doing a truly villainous thing. And that's why it's harder, because he can kind of see where he's coming from, but he also doesn't really see the purpose of this war. So he's seeing another Marine be murdered for actions that Koby's not totally resolved over. And that's the important trait here. We've been talking about Koby's resolve through this whole episode. It's in a position like this where he's not sure on what's right, that his resolve is shaky. And it's seeing Luffy in this war that once again brings his resolve back. Because he sees what Luffy's doing, he sees the struggle that he's going through. He sees that he's living up to his words about not letting anything stop him. To go all out, risk his life 100 times over to try accomplish his goal. Right now the goal is to protect his brother. And Koby gets what's the goddamn word? Gets expired. He's not expired milk. Jesus, Jack. Inspired by these actions. And he's like, you know what? Enough's enough. I've chosen my side. I am going to do my job. And I am going to stop that pirate, Straw Hat Luffy. So as Luffy's almost to ace, he sees Koby through all the smoke and the debris and everything. And he doesn't want to do this right now because he knows that Koby's not ready to take him on. He's more than willing to have a future battle with him. But at this current level, Koby, now is not the time. I'm trying to save my brother. Go away. But Koby's not having any of that. He's a Navy. He's a Marine. He's going to do everything in his power to live up to those expectations. So he goes, he builds up all his resolve, and he goes to attack Luffy. Luffy, though, isn't going to let something like this stop him when it comes to saving his brother, and he takes Koby down. Now, Helmeppo's holding an injured Koby. He's crying, how could you do this? Straw Hat Luffy, blah, 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 blah. But it's not over for Koby's development here. Because we knew that he already had that inside of him. The biggest character development here is his philosophy of what it is to be a Marine. Because through all this doubt and through all this... What's the right word here? Through all this wisdom, I dare say, through this being able to see through the rage of fog that has been lifted onto all his comrades' minds over, these pirates are coming, we need to kill them, die, 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 being enveloped by the hatred, essentially. Koby's able to see through it all and see what truly this war is about. And it's his mind having these thoughts that brings his now awakened observation Haki into overdrive. And he starts feeling the emotions of everyone around him. pirate and marine, which is important to note because we know Koby doesn't necessarily... He believed all pirates were evil in the beginning, but he doesn't still hold that belief. He knows that some pirates can be good. So his ability is letting him feel the emotions of everyone around him, and he's getting overwhelmed by it. 100,000 people here, and nearly all of them are experiencing rage and wrath and just negative emotions, and he's taking them all in. Now, his ability to be a true, empath here just goes to show how kind of a person Koby is, that despite living in this world, he is what the Marines truly need. Because his resolve, his determination is balanced out by his kindness. There are a lot of Marines in the Navy that just have that resolve to defeat evil, but not the kindness to balance it up, to be a true protector of the citizens of the One Piece world. And that's what Koby's trying to be. And it's this Haki empath observation ability that is the perfect expression of Koby's kindness. The expression, the embodiment of what it means to be a true Navy Admiral. And he does the most ballsy thing probably in the entire war, I dare say. You know what? I will say it's the most ballsy thing in the entire war. Akainu's ready to take down an injured Luffy. He's ready to continue this war on. Ace and Whitebeard have already died, and Koby is seeing all this and seeing this mindless slaughter of an enemy that's already retreating. And he kind of echoes Smoker's own thoughts about two wrongs do not make a right. The pirates being wrong in this case, because they're pirates, they've chosen a life of crime, doesn't then make the Marines right for killing them indiscriminately. And Koby does the perfect expression of this by getting in the way of Akainu's magma fist. Because Akainu's going to go charge at Luffy, and Koby, he stands in front of him, his arms are wide apart, and he's screaming. He's got tears rushing down his face because of all of the emotion behind it. He's screaming about how this isn't right. The enemy has already been defeated. We should be taking care of our own allies that are injured, not chasing after an already defeated enemy. And he's doing this as quite possibly the strongest, not including Garp, the second strongest Marine in all the Navy, the cruelest Marine, is standing there. And Koby has literally just seen this same Marine easily kill another Marine for doing something that in a lot of ways is a lesser crime than what Koby's doing, because he's literally kind of in Akainu's mind preventing him from doing justice. So Koby he's not like, he's not actually going to kill me. He's seen firsthand what Akainu will do, and he's still ballsy enough to accept his own fate and die, to stand up and do what is right. Because it is sometimes easier to do, it's not sometimes, it's always. It's easier not to do anything at all than to stand up and do what is right. And Koby, as any truly good Marine would, knows that that's not acceptable, that's not an acceptable belief, and I am going to do what's right. And he stands up and he says this very motivational speech of everything we just went over. And Akainu's like, "You're dead, kid." And he goes to punch him with a magma fist. We know what happens. Shanks gets in the way. He stops the fist. But he praises Koby of just the sheer bravery to be able to stand up to your own ally. Because that's the thing there. And this is why it's such great character development. Koby's already shown that he can stand up to enemies. He's showing that he can stand up to allies now. He can see when someone who's on his own side, someone he should be idolizing because he holds a position that he wants, and no, what you're doing isn't right, I'm going to stop you here. It's one thing to do it to an enemy, it's a whole other thing to do it to an ally. And Shanks recognizes this. He praises Koby. So Koby's getting praised by a Yonko. Garp, who's currently being held down by Sengoku, when Koby's giving this speech, he's like shocked. Like, is that Koby? Is that the kid that I've been training? Like, he knows that Koby has the potential for this, but not that he would be doing it this big, this quickly. And that finishes off everything with Koby pre-time skip. We don't see much of him post-time skip. He's the hero of the Rocky Port incident, which was an incident that involved a former member of the Rocks crew, or Choco, I believe their name was, and he was forced to team up with Blackbeard to do it. Like, crazy, crazy stuff there. But that's where he became a hero. He became a Marine captain. What else was he? He was not the Marine in charge, but one of the Marines who was, well, also in this time he became a member of SWORD. That's important to note. We know that SWORD is a secret organization, a part of the Marines that have their own authority. I'll get into SWORD another day. I'll do a whole video on SWORD. But Koby joined SWORD. He's part of the force that's sent to take down Boa Hancock. He shows that he doesn't get petrified by her, once again, comparing him to Luffy, where that doesn't happen either. And he sacrifices himself to Blackbeard in exchange for all his men's lives. And Blackbeard, having the next coming of the hero of the Marines, an actual hero at this current time, he reckons that holding him captive will be a great boon to blackmail the Navy. So he takes him captive. As he's captive, Garp is, and this is just happening in the anime as we're speaking, but Garp races over to Hachinosu, because that's where Blackbeard's keeping Koby, with a big Marine force. Perona's there as well, because she's trying to rescue Gecko Moria, her father figure. And spoiler alert, next video tomorrow is going to be about Gecko Moria. So if that's something that would interest you, if you're liking this video so far, then subscribe down below, like this video, and make sure to leave a comment about what your thoughts are on Koby. But Perona helps Koby escape in exchange for Koby trying to rescue Moria. Garp comes in, he has an encounter with Kuzon, some of the other commanders. The most important thing for about Koby here is that we see one of his moves, Honesty Fist, essentially a weaker version of Garp's very own attack, and he punches out Pizarro's giant island fist. Because we know Pizarro can combine with the island of Hachinosu, and he forms a massive fist, and Koby's like, I'm having none of it, and he destroys it. Sorry. He destroys it, and Garp forces him to leave him behind and go on his own way. So, Garp's been injured, Koby is with the members of SWORD, and this is where we're going to stop for a second. Now, I have gone over his post-time skip scenes quicker, obviously, mainly because it's his pre-time skip scenes that have the real kind of meat and potatoes behind his character development. It's more just information we learn about Koby in post-time skip, like becoming a hero, teaming up with Blackbeard, that type of stuff. The reason I'm stopping here is because before we touch on why I think he's going to be the one that stops Luffy, I want to get into his powers, because it's going to be a quick portion, because we don't see too much of the power. And it's important to note that the next scene that I'm going to talk about is a spoiler scene that's just happened in the most recent chapter of One Piece, chapter 1122. So if you guys don't want to hear that, then after we go over his powers, just click off the video. You won't be missing, too much. Obviously, you'll be missing the main climax of the video of why I think he'll be the one to stop Luffy. But I feel like if you've listened to me talk about him for this long, you can kind of get the idea of where I'm going with all of this. But if you want to stick along, then we're going to get into all the spoiler territory there, and quite possibly Koby's second greatest moment. I mean, the Akainu scene has to be the best. but his powers. I'm not even going to talk about individual techniques. He has the Honesty Fist, and he has Sorrow, and he's a master of the 6 powers. Great, great, great stuff. What I want to talk about is something more important than that. It's the speed of which he's been able to do all this is like awe-inspiring. So we know that Luffy has gotten stronger over the 2-year time skip. We know that. And we also know that Luffy spent, I believe it was 6 years, I think he was about 11 when he met Ace and everyone. If not, he might have even been a little bit younger. Either way, he had, just under a decade worth of training in the forests and mountains and stuff by Garp, by Ace and Sabo, all of that good stuff. And we see the level of strength that he gets to. Now, Koby was weaker than an average person in the One Piece world. Just look at him when we get introduced to him. He's definitely weaker. In a couple of months, he starts learning, he's able to learn one of the 6 powers. These are powers that the government kidnaps orphans to spend their whole lives training to master them. He just masters it in 2 months. And then, in 2 years after that, he's able to demonstrate power necessary to contend with a Yonko commander. That is crazy, crazy speed that he's developed that strength. He's mastered armament and observation Haki. His 6 powers that he possesses. I definitely reckon he has Conquerors. Whether or not he knows that himself yet, I would be incredibly shocked if he didn't have Conquerors Haki. But just the speed of which he's accomplished everything is just mind-blowing. It's another parallel with Luffy's progression. Because we know Luffy hit the scene, he became very notorious very quickly. Koby is doing the exact same story arc, but flipped. He's becoming a very well-known hero quickly and quickly and quickly and quickly. And that is going to be a crescendo when he encounters Luffy. But let's get into the manga scene from the most recent chapter. I spoke about it a little bit on my chapter review. If you're interested in that, go check it out on my channel. But Koby mentions that with everything that Vegapunk's saying, how he's kind of inspiring, a new era of pirates, kind of walking in Whitebeard and Roger's footsteps, he realizes that any pirate that obtains the One Piece is now no longer just a threat. They're a cataclysmic threat. Because the way Vegapunk's talking about it, this could be end-of-the-world stuff if a pirate obtains the One Piece. Even a pirate as noble and just as what Luffy is. So, we've reached the next level. We're on Ultra Nightmare at the moment, and Koby's recognizing this, and he's monologuing to himself, and we see his resolve again, and we see him come to a very, very tough decision. He decides that he's going to have to be the one to stop Luffy. He's not going to let Luffy accomplish his dream because of repercussions that could happen from that. So he resolves himself to beat Luffy, essentially, which is huge. Luffy has been his idol and, I dare say, hero. Even more so than Luffy's very own grandfather, the hero of the Marines, Garp. It is Luffy that gives Koby inspiration. And I described it like this in my chapter review as well. Koby's not just thinking about beating Luffy, he's thinking about destroying his dream here. Because Koby knows how much Luffy's dream matters to him, and Koby's resolved himself that dream could cause way too much damage. I can't let him accomplish that. I need to stop him. Which is in essence kind of killing Luffy here. But Koby he's been walking a line in the sand this whole time. Because he's been having all this idolization of Luffy when he's a Marine. He's walking a tightrope that he was always destined to fall off. Because he can't You can have a rivalry with a pirate, but you can't continuously grow as in strength and in character to be a perfect ideal marine while still hero worshipping quite possibly like the most notorious pirate in the world at the moment. It just can't be done, and it's this moment where Koby realizes that. He goes through a maturity, some growth that we first see him as just a little kid, and then he becomes a teenager and stuff like that. This is him really stepping into adulthood, making a decision that is something that pains him personally, but that in his mind at least benefits the world greatly. He's putting his own like thoughts, his own beliefs, and his own relationship with Luffy. He's not putting it ahead of himself. He's putting it. Oh, I've done a good job clusterfucking this up. He's essentially, let's rewind. He's essentially realizing that his own beliefs don't come before the world's, and that he is going to make the mature decision to stop Luffy for the benefit of the world, no matter how much that pains him personally. So, why does that make me think that Koby is going to be the one that stops Luffy? I'm assuming that I'm going to title this video that. I could switch it around. Could have a nugget of, inspiration that leads me down a different route, but I think I'll call it something along those lines. Why do I think he's going to do that? The biggest reason, and I feel like I'm a broken record, I talk about this a lot, but I feel like it's an important aspect of stories like this. Narrative implication is why I think so. He's essentially walking in Garp's footsteps. Especially because of what's just happened to Garp as well. It's literally like a physical representation of Garp passing the torch over to Koby. Now, who's Luffy representing? Of course, it's Joy Boy, but even sooner than Joy Boy, it's Roger. Now, what do we know about Roger and Garp? They were the greatest rivals. They had the deepest respect for each other. That Roger left him with his son. They nearly killed each other a multitude of times. Quite possibly Roger's greatest enemy. Now, I'll sidebar there and say if you want to say that Rocks was Roger's greatest enemy because, Roger had to team up with Garp, it doesn't really make much of a difference because it would just mean Blackbeard is the Rocks in this situation. And that Luffy and Koby may have to team up to beat Blackbeard. And I reckon that is very likely to happen because we've seen Koby's prior relationship with Blackbeard. Oda doesn't just drop that in and be like, oh, that's a cool little detail. That is going to come back to play a part. I reckon at the end of the series, it will be Koby out of everyone that helps Luffy defeat Blackbeard. But I said that he's going to stop Luffy. Now, is he going to stop Luffy from becoming King of the Pirates? Of course not. The reason he's not going to stop Luffy from becoming King of the Pirates is because we've just spent the last 25 years on our journey with Luffy to accomplish that dream. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that he very well might stop him after he becomes King of the Pirates. I do reckon that Luffy will probably follow a very similar arc to Roger. We know that Luffy's life force is diminishing thanks to all these techniques reckless techniques on his body. Now, whether or not Luffy will turn himself into Koby, that's a potential outcome. Whether or not Luffy will just have a final duel with Koby, that's a potential outcome once he realizes kind of his time's coming to an end. But I reckon Koby will follow Garp's footsteps and capture the Pirate King and become the greatest hero the Navy has ever seen. Whether that's willingly by Luffy, or whether or not, Luffy kind of sees his time, but he wants Koby to be the one to defeat him. Let's talk more about narrative implication here, because this is my only argument for this fact. Who's supposed? If you go now, I know in the manga, I think it's chapter 2, I believe, or 3, something along those lines. In the anime, it's episode 1. who's the first person that Luffy essentially meets? It is Koby. Koby at episode 1. Koby and Luffy, sorry, at episode 1. Koby and Luffy in the last episode, I reckon. It's great mirroring, foreshadowing, that Luffy's the one that creates, the greatest force that will stop him. Not maliciously stop him, but be the one to put the final chapter in his book. Be the last page of his epic saga. The one that he's essentially kind of started it all with is going to be the one that stops him. Now, I don't, even more narrative implication is just the relationship that the two of them have. It's, for the longest time, I thought it was going to be Smoker and Luffy, but that's definitely waned off. It's Luffy and Koby now. Koby coming to the resolve necessary to accomplish the goal of stopping Luffy is a very critical component of Koby's character to reach that rivalry with Luffy. But I reckon we'll see, like I said, I'm not going to talk too much longer, I'm just talking over myself now. I reckon we'll see Luffy and Koby team up to beat Blackbeard, just like Garp and Roger teamed up to defeat Rocks. And I think that Luffy and Koby may have a one-on-one clash either before that or after that over the One Piece. Luffy will most likely, nearly definitely, win. And then in the future, Koby will be the one to bring Luffy in. Luffy will follow Roger's footsteps, most likely, in my opinion. Once again, all just headcanon. And start his new era, maybe not of piracy, because I feel like that's a bit counterintuitive. His new era of freedom, and Luffy will accomplish this new era by sacrificing himself. Now, probably sacrificing himself because he's sick and he's going to die anyway, and there's no one in the entire world, friend or foe, that he would trust more implicitly to be the heralder of this, of his own capture, his own demise, than the boy that he's essentially been the byproduct of turning into the greatest marine in the world, Koby. That's how our story is going to finish. Luffy ends up being executed, or ends up dying in some other way, whether it's just been captured, probably executed. And Koby's the one that brings him in. Whether by force or by Luffy surrendering, either way, it's Koby that is going to end the chapter. It's Koby and Luffy that started it, and Koby is going to be the one that finishes it. He will be the new Garp. He will be the one. Luffy's the one that's going to bring freedom to everyone in the world. Koby's the one that's going to essentially be the leader of the Marines, that is like the sword, the shield that guards the realms of men, Game of Thrones reference. But Koby's going to be the sword that is wielded rightfully and justly to protect everyone of the One Piece world. Luffy will create the world that they're going to be living in the future, and Koby's the one that's going to protect it and maintain it. That's how I think One Piece is most likely going to end. That's why I think Koby is going to be the one that stops Luffy, and that's where I'm going to end this video. So, if you guys have enjoyed this probably 40 long minute video, maybe longer, then like and subscribe down below. I've been Jack Cypher. It's been my pleasure talking about one of the most underrated Marines in the series. Ladies and gentlemen, Jack Cypher signing out. Have a good night.